All right, welcome back, and let's discuss the 6 mistakes that make your product vulnerable. Inevitably, every product that is launched and sold anywhere in the world has inherent risks to it. These risks don't exist if the product does not exist. And the question is, how are we making these 6 mistakes, and how can we prevent those mistakes from happening in order to cover ourselves and make our product more robust from a legal perspective and consumer protection perspective as well. So the way we do that is through step 11 of our ultimate product design guide, and we'll get into details here on the left in a second. And overall, we have this paddle. It's a kid's toy made out of a piece of wood, a string, and a rubber ball. So we're going to look at this simple product here and see how we can avoid mistakes when we're designing a product similar to it. And hopefully, as we're going through this, you can reflect on some of the products that you're currently selling, or maybe some of the products that you're thinking about developing. And ideally, this presentation will help you prevent and overcome some of those vulnerabilities that a product could have. And this is, again, step number 11 of the Ultimate Product Development Guide. So this entire big poster is downloadable for free on our website. Go ahead and check it out. It takes you through all the practical steps from 1 to 17, and it's kind of tailored to someone trying to launch a product for the first time, or specifically small businesses and entrepreneurs getting into product development and product launch for the first time. This is also a good reference for young engineers, project engineers, and product managers, essentially, and engineering project managers. So take a look. There's some good amount of detail in here that can help you and guide you through the steps of actually launching a successful product. Okay, product definition. So let's actually define this word product definition. I think product definition in Webster Dictionary, or maybe on Google if you look it up, it will tell you all the documentation and modeling and CAD models and all the things needed, standards and whatnot, to produce a given product. So that is what defines the given product. And you could have a extremely complicated product definition, such as this sports car right here, or a very simple one, such as this toy that we're going to evaluate today. So I think for the most part, anyone that you would talk to could probably recreate this toy, but very, very, very few people or organizations could recreate a sports car like this. And that's because the product definition, I mean, if I handed over this entire sports car to someone and said, hey, make me a copy of this, I want 2 of these, would they be able to successfully replicate it to where its performance and looks would match? Highly doubt it. And the reason why they can't is because of product definition. Product definition is the documentation that helps you recreate a given product. So, and here at Bevel Edge, we control product definition mainly through step 11.11. That is the production design packet. So the design packet is, the folder or the packet that has all the documentation needed to recreate a given folder. And in the engineering design book, here referenced by George Dieter and Linda Schmidt, so the product design package or product definition is actually created here in the product design stage. So what you do here in the beginning, you research the market, you come up with some concepts, and depending on what you found, you feed that into the production design or the product design stage, and then you design the product. And essentially designing a product means creating a product definition or a production design packet. Once you have that, you start manufacturing it, and once you have manufactured it, you start selling it, and the product is in use. And there are 2 lines on this graph that are written or drawn here, kind of 2 extremes, and when we said at the beginning, you're making yourself vulnerable, we're talking about the line here in the bottom, where you spend very little time developing and conceptualizing a product. You spend relatively little amount of time designing it. You're fast to the market. However, now you're vulnerable to all kinds of manufacturing costs, manufacturing mistakes, and ultimately negative feedback from the consumers that are using it. So you'll end up somewhere here, and your product will be a lot more expensive than you thought it would be. Now, on the other hand, on the other extreme, you could spend a lot of time doing market research. You can spend a lot of time developing a concept, spending a healthy amount of time designing the product, because things become clear since you have done your research in the past. And then when you go to manufacturing and selling the product, things are relatively smooth sailing, little mistakes, little vulnerabilities. And that's kind of what we mean, that when your product is vulnerable, we're saying you're probably on this trajectory, and you're making yourself liable to mistakes, catastrophes, extra costs, disagreements and disputes, and at the end of the day, upset customers. So we want to help you be on a trajectory such as this, the top arc, and kind of get you out of a trajectory where things get a lot more expensive once you launch your product. Okay, so let's move on and get to the next steps. Okay, the focus of this presentation, as mentioned, is going to be in 11.1, and that is the production design packet. So the production design packet is essentially the group of documentation, or the packet of the documentation that you're using to recreate your product. And a good product design packet will allow you flexibility. Now you're asking yourself, how is it giving me flexibility? Well, we have come across customers who are making and selling a product, but they are stuck with a single manufacturer. And that's because they have absolutely zero control of what their product is. The manufacturer has all the secrets. The manufacturer is the only person or the only organization that can recreate this product. So their product definition is in the hand of the manufacturer rather than in the hand of the person selling or claiming to make this product. And if you have proper product definition, it makes you flexible because you're not stuck to a single vendor. You can go shop it around and see who can give you a better quote. So that's what I mean by flexibility. And then the next thing is quality. So how does proper product definition help you with quality? Well, if you don't define what a good product is, it is hard to define if the product was manufactured properly or with high integrity and quality. So one of the first steps into creating a quality product is having a strong production design packet, and which ties back to product definition. And next, strategy. How does a production design packet help you with strategy? Well, this is essentially business strategy. Since you have not just like the actual hardware in hand, you're not just doing the business and sales. You're not saying, hey, this is my vendor and they make the parts, I sell them. You have essentially tremendous amount more power when you want to strategically exit your business and sell it to someone else. You say, hey, not only do I have these customers and these products that I sell, I have control over these products. I can improve them. I can modify them. I can edit them. I can create different versions of it. And that will in turn increase your business strategy, especially when you want to outsource your product to different countries that have, friendly to manufacturing and such, or put you ahead of the curve compared to your competition. If you have the product definition or production design packet in your hand, it gives you tremendous leverage. Next is traceability, right? Traceability is, for example, if you create a product and it is not selling per your expectation, and the question is why not? If you don't have a product design packet, you can't go back and look and see, man, this and this in our product was not good. Here's how we could improve it, and this is how we could gain more market share or make our product more favorable in the eyes of consumers. But if your production design package does not exist, or then you have nothing you can go back to and trace back to an original flaw or an improvement that you could make. So basically, if you don't have that, it's hard for you to improve your product to begin with. And the last thing was value, right? So in addition to maybe, let's say, a patent or the consumers or the market share that you have, the product definition, aka production design packet, adds tremendous value to your business, because at the end of the day, it puts you in control of what it means to create this product. So hopefully this all makes sense, and it's kind of a selling point why someone should spend a decent amount of time defining the product and having a quality production design packet. So objects cannot talk. I mean, this point right here is maybe self-evident, but it's still worth mentioning here. And we're discussing this little paddle board game made out of a piece of wood, a foam ball, and a string. But it's important to reiterate the fact that objects do not talk. And what do I mean by objects do not talk? And what does that even mean? What is the second meaning behind it here? So basically, what I'm trying to say is, even if you had this part in your hand, you wouldn't be necessarily able to recreate it fairly easy. And why? Is because the product itself cannot speak. I mean, sure, some things are obvious. It's made out of wood. What kind of wood? Maybe you don't know. It has a string. The strength of the string is not known to you. It's made out of a foam ball. And unless you measured maybe, let's say, a handful of them and got maybe a statistical analysis, you wouldn't know exactly what size this ball is or how round it needs to be. So here are listed. Here are a few professionals listed here, or crafts listed here that where the products do actually talk. So in legal, anything a lawyer does is usually backed up with documentation, so you can go and read it. So the work of a lawyer is in a language, so it does talk. You can look at the verdicts, you can look at the articles that come out of it, and so it's kind of easy to find out if a lawyer is doing a good job or not by reading and looking at the results. Business does talk. You can clearly find out who the business people are. You can trace bank accounts, see how much money is coming in, and you can easily tell if this is a good business or not. And it's because a business entity has to have documentation. I guess maybe that's the entire definition of a business, is a documented entity that performs functions that are traceable. So a business is traceable because it can talk. Music. So when someone writes a song, how can you recreate the song? Well, they are writing music. Maybe the lyrics are known, and the notes are written down and documented, so it becomes easy to maybe copyright, patent, and you recreate music essentially. And then again, literature, of course, without a doubt, literature is the written word, so it does talk, it is recreatable, and you can objectively say when, what, how, is this piece of literature good or not good and can be improved, and it is self-evident. And then also software. Software is essentially documented words and formulas in a program. So software is also traceable to see, hey, maybe there's a software glitch. We can update the software, improve the software. And that's all because these topics here are all written and they can talk. However, if you get this in your hand, it can't tell you. There is no documentation or written word anywhere on this that tells you what kind of wood it is. That stuff is kind of proprietary and controlled by the product definition and inevitably by the product design package, production design package. So that's what makes hardware and product launch, especially hardware product launch, different than the rest. Is you have to create the documentation because it doesn't exist or is not created naturally throughout the process. Okay, getting into mistake 1. So first mistake, no CAD models. In the modern world, basically to recreate a product, you need to have a CAD model. A CAD model is computer aided design. So that is like a 3D model, computer rendering that allows you to simulate and create maybe a geometry that recreates your product. So here on the left, we have, two icons, a part and maybe an assembly. And the question is, why is it a mistake not to have CAD models in my product? Well, my products come out just fine when I buy them from my vendor. Well, the vendor essentially has a CAD model or has a product definition. And if it's not in your hands, you're maybe a little vulnerable. And if you're trying to create a product from scratch and you don't create a CAD model, you're leaving some information out on the table. So what does that really mean? Okay, to make this paddle, for example, just the wooden part of this toy, the actual paddle / handle combination. Well, it's going to be put on a CNC router, and with a bit at the end, they will trace the profile outline of this paddle, and booyah, a piece will pop out that is carved out of a piece of plywood. Now, the plywoods come in standard sizes: 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch, and 1/2 inch. Now, does it make sense for your paddle to be a size that's somewhere between 3/8 and 1/4? Probably not, because now you're looking at custom plywood thicknesses, and if 1/4 inch works, great. If it's too small, you have to move up to 3/8 of an inch, right? So if you have a CAD model, you can, or if you're using CAD, computer-aided design, to create your product, it allows you to have that foresight, because every dimension in a CAD model needs to be created by a person, and every time you create a dimension, you must think about it. So how thick do I want to make this paddle? And the answer comes from the production process and the raw materials that are available. So let's look at these bullet points. Having CAD models gives you foresight in the manufacturing process, and then it gives you foresight in the standard materials that are available. So let's look at this plywood example that we said. Maybe the price between a 1/4 inch and 3/8 of an inch is not that much. It's just a few cents. Then sure, we'll go with the better one. But once you jump from 3/8 to 1/2 an inch, maybe the price exponentially increases. So if you have a CAD model, it gives you insight into the manufacturing and raw materials, and that can help feed you some information on maybe which direction you want to take your design. And it allows for rapid iteration. So if you want to try maybe prototyping a 1/2 inch, 3/8 inch, or a 1/4 inch to see which one works best, with the CAD model, you can iterate those pretty quickly by changing a simple dimension. And in general, it gives you control over your parts and the assembly geometry. Sure, you could just use a sketch or a 2D drawing, but at the end of the day, it's in the modern world, it's always nice to have a CAD model in hand, in a file on a flash drive that you can refer back to and say, this is my product. And it's additionally added value. So when you want to sell your product as a whole, not just to consumers, but let's say you want to do sell your entire business to a bigger company that has its eye on your product, and if you say, hey, I don't have CAD models, they're like, well, how are we supposed to recreate it? We're just relying on you and your word, or maybe just on your vendor to make it for us. But if you had CAD models, that's a tremendous amount of information that you could potentially sell to the next company that is going to take over your product. Okay, that's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, no engineering drawings. So the reason why this is mentioned is because I can't tell you the number of times that I've spoken or consulted with people that have a product, and they just thought that if they go to a designer online and get a CAD model from them, that is all they need to make their product. Sure, maybe you can get started, but it leaves you vulnerable. So this is a mistake not to have engineering drawings. And for our paddle here in the bottom, this is what I would do. I would have an engineering drawing for the entire assembly that talks and controls the configuration. I would have an engineering drawing just for the wooden paddle here. And this drawing, I could maybe shop out to multiple different vendors and see who can give me the cheapest wooden paddle. Next, I would have a drawing that controls the string, maybe what the diameter needs to be, how long it needs to be. And I can find maybe rolls of the string and have someone cut it into pieces, or maybe I'll do it myself. However, for example, how long the string needs to be is something that's controlled in the drawing, and maybe what's the deviation. Can the string be plus or minus 2 inches, or does it have to be plus or minus 1/4 inch? And then also maybe a drawing for the ball or the sphere at the end. Those are the drawings that I would make. 1, 2, 3, 4. Minimum of 4 drawings, and maybe a 5th one or a 6th one controlling the pattern here, the blue and red circles that are on the paddle, kind of controlling what that geometry or what that shape needs to be. Okay, let's go through these bullet points here. Basically, engineering drawings control geometric details that are not captured in your CAD model. So your CAD model is going to be a perfect shape, perfect size, perfect orientation, perfect locations. Everything is perfectly controlled because it's computer simulated. But when the part comes out, it is not perfect, and that is where the engineering drawing helps. What deviation from perfect is acceptable? And if you don't have an engineering drawing, you are relying on your manufacturer's word to say that, hey, I'm going to make this for you as good as it needs to be. And they could technically start shrinking your paddle over time, and you would have no clue because you don't have a drawing to keep them honest by. And that can make for potentially upset customers, or maybe thin paddles, and now your product is seen as cheap because the manufacturer is cutting cost. And honestly, they can get away with it. Why? Because you never gave them specifications on what the tolerance is. They can say, well, this is 3/8 of an inch thick. It's just the tolerance is huge. So an engineering drawing gives you additional controls. So controls tolerances of parts and assemblies, right? It controls the part and product revisions. What does that mean? So this is the illustration in the bottom left. This is a sample bevel edge drawing. Every drawing controls its revision. So you have maybe revision 1 of the paddle. So here's going to be that specific part number that identifies which geometry we're talking about, which revision it is, maybe some reference drawing. It gives you the size of the paper, the estimated weight of that component, the title of it, who the actual owner of this drawing is, and that hopefully is your business name in here, and kind of what scale it is and how many sheets are in this drawing. So, and maybe I should make an entire video talking about what makes a good engineering drawing, but anyways, it controls the part, product, and revision. So, and also it indirectly determines the manufacturing process. And if your drawing, for example, has extremely tight tolerances, maybe we would have to cut your paddle out with a laser cutter to make sure it's laser accurate. But if the tolerances are loose, maybe we can use a CNC router or maybe a water jet to cut this profile out. And depending on what the tolerances are, we have options in choosing the actual machine that is going to make your part. So some machines are more accurate than others, and essentially the tolerances on your drawing will control that. Okay, it will aid in quality control. We talked about that. A drawing will keep your manufacturer honest because it is a document that you're hold accountable to. So it's a contract between you and your manufacturer. And aids in the assembly process. So if you have an assembly drawing, the manufacturer can take a look at it and see how it's supposed to be put together. You can call out additional documentations and standards. So, for example, I need this to have a blue circle here, a red circle here, and a blue dot in the bottom, and another red circle here. Well, the question is, what shades of blue are acceptable? What shades of red are acceptable? And that is something that you can control in your drawing. You can reference back to standards or additional documentations that you've provided. And it just, kind of helps increase the controls over your part. Next, provide keynotes and reminders. There are some things that are not necessarily obvious in the CAD model or the engineering drawing, but if you add some notes here, it can serve as a reminder for you or the person evaluating and trying to recreate your product as a vendor for you. So anyways, the notes and reminders are invaluable, and sometimes they're needed in drawings, and that's where you can find them. And used to quote and price of parts. So whenever you go to a vendor and say, hey, can you make me X product, and it's made out of these parts, they need to have a drawing or some kind of documentation to be able to quote it for you. And because the engineering drawing controls the tolerances and specifications of your parts, they will look at that drawing to give you a quote based off of the controls that you have in your drawing. And also, if you have some foresight, which is what we prefer to do at Bevel Edge, we kind of dual purpose use engineering drawings for patent figures. So if the client chooses to do a provisional patent we can quickly modify the engineering drawings to be figures for that. Or if they are using an attorney to submit a full non-provisional patent, we help them with the engineering drawings and get them the right views to make the appropriate figures for their patents. So if you have foresight, you can dual purpose these engineering drawings, and ultimately it will help you out. So that is mistake number 2 to avoid. Moving on to mistake number 3, no drawing standards. Okay, so a drawing is essentially a piece of documentation that conveys details between you and the manufacturer that is making your product. And just like written words or computer software codes, if you don't follow the standards, what is written in the drawing or what is shown in the drawing can be interpreted in many different ways. So it is important to state what standard this is in. So if I give you a document or a note handwritten with a bunch of words on it, maybe it's written in English, maybe it's written in Spanish, Italian, or German. So all the letters look the same, and I'm interpreting it a different way. However, if an engineering drawing explicitly states what standard it's written in, if I give you a note and say, hey, this note is written in English, so don't try to read it like it's Spanish, it won't make sense. Don't try to read it like it's German or Italian, it will not make sense to you. This is a note written in English, interpreted as English, as such. And if you don't understand it, make the translation accordingly. So, GD&T drawings and geometric dimensioning and tolerancing is something that kind of binds and standardizes the engineering drawing that you have. Now, why is this important? If you are maybe considering outsourcing your parts, outsourcing your product to somewhere else outside the country that is making it, you need to tell them which standard to follow. Now, here are 3 standards written out: ASME, which is what Bevel Edge follows, the American Society of Mechanical Engineering. There is also ISO, International Organization for Standardization, and DIN, Deutsche Institut für Normung. So these are all different standards that people can create engineering drawings to. And if you don't have a drawing with an explicitly given standard, it can at the end of the day be interpreted in a different way. Okay, so it is a mistake to leave that up for interpretation and leave this ambiguity in your product. It can cost you further down the line. Okay, what would GD&T, or what is the GD&T ASME drawing, help you with? Now, first, it will allow the interpretation overseas. So maybe you're using an American manufacturer and you're looking to reduce the cost of your manufacturing. And if your document is, your engineering drawings are made to a given standard, you can feel more comfortable sending it overseas and ensuring yourself that the product is not going to be misinterpreted. And if it is misinterpreted, the misinterpretation was on their part because you were explicit in which standard you created your drawings to. So in terms of litigation or pointing fingers, you will be a little bit more protected here. Okay, GD&T also allows for tighter geometric controls of critical features. So if you wanted to, if you wanted to explicitly state how to control the size orientation of certain features, maybe this hole here, what is the position tolerance, what is the angularity tolerance of it, or maybe how close can this hole at the end of the paddle be to the edge. You can control those with GD&T, and that is a standard that every manufacturer speaks or should be able to understand. And also, on the other hand, it allows for increased geometric freedom on non-critical features. So one example here on our paddle is maybe you want to tightly control this part of the paddle, this profile here, because you don't want it to be too thin and your paddle becomes brittle. But you want to give the manufacturer some loose guidance on how big this part of the paddle needs to be. Maybe the tolerance for this section of your paddle is, let's say, plus or minus 1/8 of an inch, but the tolerance here for this profile could be plus or minus 1/4 inch, plus or minus 3/8 of an inch. And if you have proper geometric dimension tolerance drawings, it can help you manufacture, instead of scrapping parts because they don't meet the tight tolerances of your drawing, you can give them additional freedom to increase the product scope and acceptance criteria for your given product. So that's one way GD&T will help you. And in addition, it's also increased quality, increased technology that you will own as your intellectual property. And later on, when you're doing an exit strategy and trying to sell your business to someone bigger or someone better, showing that you have engineering drawings and they follow a given standard will inevitably add more value to your entire product and to your business. Okay, so if I was going to make this paddle, what are some of the GD&T controls I would put? Okay, looking at this ball right here, the first thing is you see a seam. So this foam ball is actually molded, and that is the mold line. So with my GD&T controls, I can specify how much tolerance there is for this mold line and what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. Okay, I think that's critical. The second one we talked about is the actual size of the hole, the position of the hole, and maybe the distance to the edge right here. What is acceptable, what is not. Next, of course, here the profile and the handle. Maybe the handle profile needs to be controlled more for ergonomic reasons. And then we talked about the profile on the outside, keeping that maybe more loose, unless there is a specific paddleboard standard that we need to meet. And then we can obviously, through GD&T, make sure that our paddleboard outside profile matches that standard. And then also the position orientation of this hole. So those are some of the GD&T controls I would put on this simple toy right here. And here in the bottom left, you can see the ASME logo and kind of what they do with high quality drawings. Anyways, that is mistakes number 3 to avoid, is making sure that you have proper standardizations in GD&T on your drawings before you send them overseas to reduce your manufacturing cost. Moving on to mistake number 4, no bill of materials. So sometimes people think that they can get away with just having the CAD model and the engineering drawing, and that makes a perfect product, and that's all there is to it. And then when they go to sell their business or sell their product to a bigger company who's interested in pursuing and expanding on the product that they have, they get surprised when they don't have bill of materials. And here we're trying to help you avoid that mistake and help you create the BOM, bill of materials. So what is a bill of materials? So if I had to explain it to you in brief, a bill of material is an accompanying document that ties together all of the reference needed to create your product. So a bill of materials would say, hey, use this CAD model, use CAD model X, use drawing X, and follow X process. And then you have CAD model Y, drawing Y, Y process, drawing Z, assembly Z, CAD model Z, and then this process. And if you put them all together, so 1, 2, 3, you can have maybe 1 for the board, 1 for the string, and 1 for the ball. And then you list all of those things for the individual part, the sub-assembly, and the complete assembly together. You put standards and references together, and that is what a bill of material does. So let's quickly look over this list right here. Okay, my definition of a bill of material is an accompanying document that ties together the product definition and controls. Okay, it provides structure to product documentation. Okay, what does structure mean? So each part needs to have a part number. So you have 1, 2, 3 parts with 3 different part numbers. And what is the primary part? What is the secondary part? What's the tertiary part? And what part is more important than the next? And how many parts do you need? How many parts together make a sub-assembly? How many sub-assemblies make it full assembly? And this is what helps create a structure, is the bill of materials. And that's how it does create the structure. Okay, it calls out materials. Okay, so some of the things are not going to be obvious in the CAD model or the drawing. So the CAD model of this paddle will have the ideal shape. In your drawing, you'll have the tolerances of it. And maybe you say made out of wood. Okay, made out of pine wood. Okay, there's different kinds of pine wood. But the bill of materials will call out the specific material. So why is it important to control that? Well, for maybe wood is a little harmless here. Maybe some woods that you use have splinters or splinter really easy. Maybe some woods are pressure treated and have chemicals in them. Is that the kind of wood you want to use for a kid's toy? Probably not. And maybe some woods are, people are allergic to it, right? So when people start grabbing your handle, they get a rash on their hand because it's a special kind of wood from a special place that has some kind of tree sap into it that makes people allergic to it. So that is how you control the materials of your parts. Maybe you want to control the material of the string, the material of the foam, right? You don't want someone to use hazardous foam for this kid's toy. You want to maybe use a neutral foam, right? Something they use for like kids' toys or dog toys, but you don't want them to use the same foam they would use in maybe in construction equipment or military equipment where there are no kids involved. So the bill of materials helps you control these things. And also the bill of materials, in addition to controls, also enables freedoms. So maybe there are 6 different kinds of woods that would work for this paddle, and you want to list out each individual one of these 6 types of wood that are acceptable. Now you're giving your manufacturer more flexibility. When price of one goes up, they move to the other, or when one is short, they move to the next, and it gives them flexibility, making sure that the schedule risk to production development is not is reduced. Okay, and then next thing is call out specifications. So what are some specifications here? We kind of talked about the material of this, the ball. Let's talk about the paint. So the blue paint and the red paint that is used, I mean, is that going to be in a CAD model? I mean, yeah, you can have the colors in the CAD model. You can have the lines in the drawing to show you which locations they are. But the actual standard that is used to paint, maybe that's not obvious. Like, how dark does the paint need to be? How many layers does it need to have? How blue does it need to be? What's the right shade of blue to use? What is the right shade of red to use? So these are called out through the specifications and the standards, right? So let's say we say let's use a kid safe wood paint, and maybe we'll list out a couple options of paint. So Sherwin-Williams, right, Behr paint, Crayola paint, whatever is available, and then we also give them the specifications of the paint, and then we also give them the standard that they need to apply to. Maybe the paint needs to dry for 24 hours before you start packaging it. All those things will be called out on the bill of materials. And yeah, again, called out processes as well. And one of the processes to call out maybe is that knot at the end. I mean, it might be in the CAD model, it might be in the drawing, but what kind of knot is it? And if you have specific call out for that process, you can say, hey, pull the string through here, but this knot, that is a specific knot for Eagle Scout standard 672, which is the double monkey fist knot, right? And that is the kind of knot that I want. Don't just give it to Joe Schmuck who's just going to put a bow at the end of it. That's not what I want. This is a structural part of this toy. If the knot doesn't work, the toy doesn't work. So I'm giving you a special process to follow when creating this knot. So anyways, that is why the bill of material is important, and that's why we want you to avoid mistake number 4, is making sure you have a bill of material. That way you can control some of the aspects of your product that might not be obvious right away from a CAD model or engineering drawing. Moving on to mistake number 5, not having an assembly procedure. Okay. Assembly procedure, there's basically 2 of them. One is used by the manufacturer to build the product, and the other one is maybe for the customer to assemble the product themselves. I think IKEA furniture is one of these where you buy the product in a box, but you have to assemble it yourself. Naturally, it comes with an assembly procedure, and that is kind of what we mean here. It can frustrate customers if your product is not obvious and controlled in how it needs to be assembled. So that is kind of this bullet point number 2. For bullet point number 1, let's digress here. When you go and buy a car, I mean, you're 100% confident that all the materials and the parts are excellent and that it's assembled properly. So when you're going down the highway with full speed, you're not really worried about that maybe the engine will fall out, the wheels will fall out, the steering wheel will come loose, the gas pedal gets stuck, or worse, the brakes malfunction. So no matter how good of a job you do controlling each part and your assembly, at the end of the day, the assembly procedure could be a vital flaw. And we talked about that briefly, about this knot here at the end. So that is an assembly step. And if the people who are assembling your product don't do a good job, then the knot is made of subpar quality, and it will inevitably diminish the function of your product, right? Of this little paddleball game. Okay, so the assembly procedure obviously controls the order and steps needed to assemble the product, and it also controls the order and steps for packaging. Okay, so maybe your product is a pair. Maybe it's not just a single paddle and ball. Maybe it comes in as a pair. And if they don't know, they're not going to put two of those in the same box. Or maybe it is individually packaged. And what kind of packaging should you use, right? Should you wrap the wire or the string around the handle and put the ball here before you put it in the net? And then make sure it has a tag? Or do you not wrap the string around the handle and keep the ball loose in here? All of those details will only come out, or can only be controlled during within proper assembly procedure. Because if the assembly is not done right, or if you make the mistake of not having the assembly procedure, you're inevitably giving your manufacturer more leeway to potentially screw you over, or putting it in their hands to see what they think is proper assembly. Anyways, that is mistake number 5. Okay, moving on to last and final mistake you could possibly be making launching your product for the first time is having no packaging controls. Okay, no packaging controls is something that my clients kind of figure out by surprise as they get towards the end of their or getting close to the product launch at the end of the design. And it's always a scramble to figure out what the best way to package it is and what's the best way to present it to the customer. So packaging controls is a must, and that is definitely a mistake to make if you don't have proper packaging controls, and it's certainly a mistake to avoid. Okay, let's look at some of the items I've listed out here. Is bulk transportation. Inevitably, if you're making, let's say, an order of 10,000 of these, they're not going to be shipped individually. They'll be transported in bulk and shipped in bulk. And they're not going to be sitting in a nice, let's say, climate controlled environment. They might be sitting in a shipping container, maybe sitting out back as they're getting moved through transportation. So proper packaging controls is critical to make sure the product lands in the hands of the final customers appropriately, without damage, without dings, and making sure that the logistics of handling your product is easy. And we'll do that by, again, product packaging controls. Here in the bottom left is an example that I kind of drew up on a decent packaging control. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes filled with a given product. Let's say they're filled with this paddle ball. And maybe this note says do not stack more than 5 at a time, because if you start stacking them too high, the weight on the bottom ones will crush this ball, and now the product is damaged. Okay, so you need to be upfront with that and create these packaging control requirements. And then each individual box, like you see, each individual level has its own label. So not only are you controlling the part number, you're controlling the pallet number, and you're controlling the individual box number too. So this box might go to Amazon, box might go to Etsy shop, this box might go to eBay, this one might go to your Shopify account, and this one will be sent to Temu. So when and you know, this entire thing is wrapped to kind of weatherproof it, and so not only are you controlling the packaging of the individual selling unit, also the packaging for the logistics and transportation. Next, Amazon example. So if you have a product of a certain geometry, Amazon will charge you a certain kind of storage and shipping fee. So you want to make sure you take into account these things up front and not be surprised by certain kind of Amazon and shipping fees or shipping requirements. That's also something that you should consider. and also barcodes and identification. So each box right here, for example, has a barcode. That's how you know how many units have been received and shipped and transported throughout. And then each individual selling unit will also have its own ID and barcode on it as part of the shipping controls and part of the product definition. Let's see, patent pending stickers. So if your product is a new product that has a patent that's pending, you certainly want to call that out. Patent pending stickers, that way people who want to copy you are warned beforehand that, hey, don't try to copy this. I'm telling you right now, I'm planning on patenting this, and you should be wary of trying to copy me because I'm going to come after you. So patent pending sticker is a good one. Warning labels and stickers are also good. Maybe your product has pinch points, maybe your product is sharp, maybe your product is a choke hazard. So maybe if it's in a plastic bag, the plastic bag is a choke hazard, you want to have a warning label on that. Or such as this one, the paddle ball, like this could potentially hit a kid in the eye, and you want to be upfront with your customers and say, hey, warning, kids over the age of 3 only, and hey, if you're playing with this, just know that there's a potential that this ball could hit you in the head or hit you in the eye, and that way you're kind of protecting yourself and reducing your vulnerability through these things. And then also finally, customer impression. So the consumers, the first impression that they get from your product oftentimes is the packaging that it's in. And Apple is their masters of this. Like, they spent a huge amount of engineering effort into packaging their products to where you get them. They're super nice, so they're kind of doing that to help reinforce the idea of quality, and that is also certainly something to keep in mind whenever you're doing your packaging controls. Okay, with that, we're wrapping up mistake number 6. Okay, now that we've gone through all of these 6 mistakes that you could possibly make, hopefully looking back now at the product design package, you have a little bit more appreciation on why and what it means to have a complete product design package and why it's needed, how it gives you flexibility, improves your quality, allows you for strategy, improves traceability, and inevitably adds tremendous value to your business and to your product. So not just a 3D, not just a 2D, not just the assembly procedures, bill of materials, and proper packaging. So these are the reasons why we want to avoid these 6 mistakes and make sure we are checking these boxes to reduce liability for you in the long run. Okay, one thing we did not talk about is the production design documents. So these are the proprietary documents that inevitably feed into the product design package. So these are fundamental calculations, engineering simulation, and tolerance analyses. These tie back into what ends up in engineering drawing, how the CAD models are made, what kind of GD&T is called, how we control the product bill of materials, and maybe how do we prevent corrosion resistance that are a potential failure mode. So production design documents essentially serve as a baseline technology for you, identify the risks that you have, and you don't mention those risks here. They're kind of controlled in the production design document, which is a proprietary document that you have, and that's where your product ratings come from. So if your sticker on your product says no more than 100 pounds on this stool, or this table cannot hold more than 500 pounds, these ratings and these fundamentals come from your product design package. And or maybe like a car jack here, right? Do not lift more than 7 tons using this jack. So the limitations and kind of basic science behind your product come from your product design documentation, okay? And documented here is legal defense. So hopefully these production design documents will never see the day of light. However, they must be pulled out in terms of litigation, and when you're forced to do so, and if you've done your due diligence, they will ultimately protect you from a catastrophic failure that has happened, or take blame away from you and say that this was maybe a freak accident that could have never been avoided. Okay. But more about 11.2, you can find that on our website or reaching out to us directly. Anyways, thanks for watching, and good luck launching your product.